All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Sip Fearlessly. And you guys know Sip Fearlessly stands for Sisters in Power. And we are so excited to be here today, especially because of our special guest. But yeah, so we're here today. How are you feeling, G?
I feel
How's
great.
everything?
I feel
Everything's
great.
good?
Yes, very
Okay.
good. Blessed, grateful, all of the good stuff.
Right. I know a lot of us been going through a lot of emotions, and we're like blaming Mercury
Retrograde,
retrograde,
yes.
and all of that. So we're getting through it. We're getting through it. But I just want to thank every single person who has been supporting our platform, who has been watching and sharing and liking and all of that stuff. You know, we've been working on this for a long time now, so we're just very excited to continue to bring you amazing interviews and content and conversation. So yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. So without further ado, we have the Bronx legend, Kim Osorio, in the house.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for
And
coming.
congratulations
Thank you.
on your show.
Yes, thank you, thank you. We're gonna dive deep into so many things. We don't
Yes.
have much time, but
Without
I'm
the
gonna make
sip,
sure
but the sip part is
Aw.
we're supposed to be sipping.
we
so-
are
I know
supposed
we
to be
are.
Oh, is
sipping.
that?
We're supposed
that
to
a thing
be
you usually
sipping.
do?
So I owe you that. Yeah.
Yes, because I see a sip and I'm
Right.
like, what am I sipping on?
Right. So I do owe you that for next time.
Definitely.
Yes. But oh my God, I'm just gonna dive right in. So, as we all know, journalist, TV producer, writer, you know, in media, public speaker, author, just so many amazing things that you have accomplished. You know, we had the opportunity to sit down with
Yes,
you last
yes.
year, I believe it was.
Yes.
Yeah, and we, you know, dove into a lot of your story. But since then, you've been on fire.
Yes.
You've been on fire, so we wanted to bring you back and talk
Thank
about
you.
all of the new projects that you have going on. And, you know, for us also, a big thing that we resonate with you is that you're all about like women empowerment.
Yes.
And you speak up for us, even when it's a whole room of men. So we love that. So, you know, I'm going to actually kick it off with that and ask you a little bit about how do you feel about Kamala Harris?
I'm excited.
Okay.
I'm actually secretly working on something connected to the DNC. Yeah, and you know, that's coming up very soon.
Okay.
And so it's just an exciting time to
Yeah.
be here, 2024, to see her campaign, to know that it's going to happen.
Yes.
But why you gotta look at me
I'm looking at the world.
Right.
Like what the alternative is insane, in my opinion, in my political
Yes.
opinion. But so it's an exciting time to see that, right?
Right.
And so I'm just really proud of where we've come, or how long, or how far we've come as women.
Yes.
Absolutely. And, you know, her, like you, huge powerhouses. You know, just the way she speaks, her demeanor, the way she carries herself, you know, I'm excited. I'm very excited. But also, I wanted to touch on the fact that Biden actually like stepped down and allowed her to come to the forefront, knowing that his time was kind of up, you know? So I think about that because I know you've talked about a lot about, you know, just the media and everything that's going on now and like how the youth do things so differently now. You know, so knowing when to like, all right, pass the torch, you know, to the next generation, you know, I think, or not even the next generation, but I think him knowing that, you know, there's a lot of women that are empowered now in
Right.
business and
Right.
in so many different industries. And he knew that that would help the campaign and we can beat the other party. So let's talk a little bit about that and about where you see the media now, journalism and all of that.
And I think that comes with experience, right?
Yes.
When you have enough experience and you're comfortable with the achievements and the things that you've done in your career, I think it's a lot easier to step down in a
Right.
sense, right? And say, like, I know that this is not the best decision for me to move forward for the greater good. So I feel like that is something a lot of people can relate to.
Right.
Journalism, I mean, I don't feel like I'll ever age out of storytelling in my career, right? But I do feel that I'm able to transition in different ways, and some platforms or some subjects just aren't the best for me with where I am in my life. So I'm able to know that. But that's not taking away from anyone who might not feel that way, right? And I think particularly coming out of the hip hop community, that's something that we talk about a lot. I feel like, if I'm being totally honest, women, we age out quicker, right? There's a lot of, look, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. There's a lot of men my age who are still doing it. And it's okay. The audience is accepting of them, and they should do it for as long as they can. But for me to be at my age, sitting up, reporting on things like a rap beef, let's just say, that wouldn't be acceptable. Now, I can sit here and talk about Kendrick and Drake all day. I talk with my friends on the phone, and we have a good time. But to be on a platform and to be covering that sort of thing, I don't think it is a good idea for the community at large or myself. You know, so for me as a woman, like, there are things that I want to talk about. As a professional, there are things that I want to talk about. There are things I can cover. There are relationships topics. Like, there's so much for me in the storytelling genre, just having the background, coming where I come from in the Bronx, you know, coming from hip hop. Like, there's a lot to cover. And I feel like I have a lot more to offer. But it ain't going to be like on a rap beef. Unless you really want to take it there, you know, and now really go toe to toe. But you're going to be like, what is this lady talking about?
Yes.
My kids are into it. You know what I'm saying? My kids get in the car with me, and they're like talking to me about lyrics. And it's a fun conversation to be able to go deep with them on it. But just professionally, is it the best? I think we have to grow.
Definitely. I think that's the key word, is the growth. You can't continue to do the same thing in your career. You have to definitely grow and do something different. But we agree with you 100%. So our platform definitely focuses on that. It focuses on bringing a voice to the voiceless, to the creatives. And, you know, a lot of people don't take the time nowadays to share this, to have their guests share their journey and their story, because they're more into like whatever's trending and gossipy and things like that, you know. But for us, we feel like sharing your story, you know, just like you are a storyteller, is what is going to empower listeners and is going to help them see that, okay, this is somebody that came from the Bronx, put their all in and made it. And, you know, in her respective career, right? So for us, that's very important on our platform. But what do you feel about that? Because I feel like everybody is just wants to look at drama. You know,
likes and trend and be trending and get likes and follows. That's what it is right now.
And we're also not young spring chickens.
Right. I'm a young spring chicken. I don't know what I'm talking
Listen, I feel 25.
No,
I mean, you know, but
it's different. Technology has changed a lot about how we consume content and consume information. And in this day and age of social media, I feel like, you know, we have to be careful, right? Because social media has really changed the social landscape, right, of just people in general, relationships, people in business. So for me, it's kind of something that I try to stay in the know and in the now on all the time, right? So like, I'm very savvy, I would say, just, you know, with technology. I mean, there are still things that I can't do behind the computer. I'm like, how do you upload this? Like, if don't ask me to do something in a TikTok. I can't, right? But, you know, like, I have my apps that I use, and it's really something that I think we have to keep up with. Because professionally, you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage. I had a friend tell me a couple of days ago, you know, and I worked with him years ago, but he said something like, oh my God, you know, I think the bots are just rejecting my resume because it doesn't speak to today's, you know, journalist. And I was like, that's very perceptive of you and probably true. You know? So we have to make sure that we are marketing ourselves professionally in a way that keeps up with what, you know, business is and technology is today.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, I also think, right, that for myself at least, I want to maintain that certain level of just interaction that I feel like social media has changed, right?
Yes.
So, you know, I see it with my son at 14. I'm like, get off your phone, right? That's something us parents do. Get off your phone. You're on your phone too much, right? Because it's like, it's not helping
consuming,
their social, you know, interaction with
It's not,
people,
yeah.
right? Like, look me in the eyes when you're talking to me,
Right.
please. So I think that, you know, there are things that we need to do in our generation to help the generation that's coming up under us
Right.
understand how technology is affecting us just on a personal level with each other.
So I agree with that, but being like in the field now, right? I'm like, all right, but they got this. The kids got this.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing, right, in our respective age group for our community? Because I almost feel like when you get into media or influencing and things like that, you almost still have to be in a broken place. Because that is what's causing the controversy. That is what's making people act out. That is what other people are connecting to, you know, the
Right.
toxicity, things like that. And almost like when you're like in a healed place, people are not connecting with it that much because people like the controversy. So like, what do you feel about that? Because I feel like that's what is happening to a lot of platforms, you know, and I wouldn't say like we don't have viewers and listeners, we do, but the majority is looking out for what is the
Drama.
next controversial thing that this person's gonna say or do, you know?
Well, that's just, to me, that's entertainment,
Right.
right? Like, you want to be entertained. I'm not
Right.
going to sit down and watch a hour TV show with no drama in it.
Right.
What am I doing? This is boring. I'm going to bed.
Right.
You know, but I do hear you.
Yes.
And I work with a lot of influencers, right? I have shows. I produce a lot of television shows with a lot of younger women with a lot of followers,
Right.
millions of followers, right? And so I think the experience that I have, and we were talking about what like women in our age group can do, is really about life.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So being able, just because you've got, you know, 10 million followers doesn't mean that you have all of the experience that I have, right?
Right.
Or that you're going to be able to convey that to your audience. But the people who follow you are following you for a reason. So I
Right.
think the big thing is understanding that responsibility that you have.
Yes.
So once you and that's where I come in, even in my shows, right? Like I do a lot of work in the field, you know, on my shows as a showrunner, and I feel like in every scene that you see on my shows, like I'm in every scene. I always try to be there at a lot of the scenes, although I cannot be there for the taping of every single scene on the show. But when I am there, or even sometimes when I'm not there, and I watch a cut, I can see the show and I can see my influence in the show. So I take that as like, you know, a notch on my belt when
Right.
things go right, and then I look at it like, okay, what did you do wrong when things go wrong, right? Because I want to make sure it's a reflection of me, and I know the influence I have when I'm watching the shows I
Right.
produce, especially if you're getting in front of the camera, you're saying exactly what I told you to say.
Right. Right.
Now that, you know, I don't just tell people say this. That's not how I produce. When I produce, I work with talent and I try to get to their story and help them articulate and express their story in front of the camera.
Right.
So I know when they're in a place of trust and there's a comfort level there, then I can take their story and give it back to them in a way, right, where they can deliver a television show.
Yeah.
Because it's still, even though in a lot of the shows that I do, it's reality, it's still TV.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's life ain't that, you know,
Right.
exciting. They might think that it's that exciting, right? Like, oh my God, I'm on a show, I'm this person, I've got, 10 million followers, so I'm going to get in front of the camera and everybody wants to watch me.
Right.
No. That doesn't happen. We're still creating a show together. That's why there's me and there's like all the producers I have and the cameramen. And so they learn that, right? Especially when they come into the show and it's their first experience.
Yeah.
And a lot of, I think, younger women, younger influencers, they don't have that experience because
Right.
the experience of holding up your phone and taping for 5 seconds is not the same
Exactly.
when you come in and we're like doing a show.
Right.
It's like a job,
Right. Yeah.
right? So
And
there's
I-
a lot there.
And I like that you say that because obviously, what people say about reality shows and that it's scripted and things like that. So I like that you share, that it's basically helping them articulate the narrative.
Their story.
Right.
And I think,
Right.
obviously I've seen all of the stuff about, is it scripted? Not on my shows.
Right.
There are scenarios that are sometimes scripted because we are not the days of early reality TV
Right.
where you have a camera in the house for 24 hours.
Exactly.
We have an hour to get this done,
Yeah.
right? But there's a lot of preparation that goes into figuring out what the scene is going to be. And so you do have to produce and work with talent to be able to get their story out in that amount of time.
Yeah.
So when people say that it's scripted, it's that they're not necessarily understanding all of the different things that
Right.
go into
Right.
making a scene.
Yes.
Yes, we created this scene, right? Like we said, we're going to shoot your birthday party at this lounge at this time, and we're going to have all of these people there, or who would you have there, right? And then, we'll work with them on that. But when we get in there, we're going to talk about something that we know is real to the talent.
Right.
And that's what makes it real. Because to
Okay.
me, a reality show doesn't work unless you're getting real emotion.
Right.
You can come on and
Right.
you think people are faking it, but when you watch a
So,
show, the
no,
audience, you
it's
can
true.
see when they're
Right.
faking
We,
it.
we,
You're like,
we
oh,
connect
that's
with
fake.
them, absolutely.
Yeah.
But so I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Okay.
So you guys don't go digging like in their personal lives, like okay, they know that somebody in their personal life can come and bring some juicy drama.
I mean,
To make a
it
story.
depends.
Right.
It depends on the show.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Like if that's what the show is
Yeah.
about that we're producing, and trust, we don't have to dig because
People
a
come
lot of the
out,
shows
yes.
are
People
shows
come
we're
out.
doing
Yes.
on very successful networks
Yes.
and millions of viewers.
Yes.
A lot of times when they find out
Yes.
that
come
people
out
are
of
on the show, you don't have a lot of digging to do.
Right.
The DMs are
Right.
flooded with people that want to be on the show.
Right.
Wow.
What you have to do as a producer is have some discernment to know what's real and what's not real.
Exactly.
Who's trying to
Yeah.
get on TV?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Wow.
who's
Yes.
really,
Because-
telling the truth about
Yeah.
what really happened.
Oh, wow.
So
It's
because
juicy.
yes.
so I'm gonna spill an exclusive for you guys.
Okay.
So I was offered one time
To do a show?
to be on Love and Hip Hop, and I was like, oh no, and that's the reason why, because I'm like, so many people are gonna come out of the woodwork and want to come and be a part of this, and no,
They
no,
got a lot
no,
of dirt
no.
on you, huh? They got a lot of dirt on you.
Not dirt, but I have,
They
think
they
past
have dirt,
relationship
right.
Has
with
some
my
past.
children's father,
Right.
and things like that, which was tumultuous, So
Right.
I'm like, I know he may pop up and try to say something, or somebody's gonna say something, but all right, well, listen.
And it's understanding that when you do the show, you have to realize, like, I'm doing this show. You got to be willing to be
Yeah.
vulnerable and willing and open
Yes.
to
And
everything
that's the hard
coming
part.
out.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the hard part.
If you're not gonna commit to that, then don't do it.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
Yeah. So so speaking of that, and like portraying a more positive relationships on the shows. So just to give everybody like a quick run through. So you started off with Global Grind, which was really dope because you were helping build like their brands and things like that, which is cool. And then you did Hustle Brooklyn, Love and Hip Hop, of course, Growing Up Hip Hop, and now The
Impact New York.
Impact.
Well, Global Grind was a site that we worked on. It
Okay.
was a startup
Yes,
website.
yes.
And I was there after BET, after The Source, years after I transitioned into television. I didn't get into reality probably until 2013 because I was doing a lot in television, but on the digital side and in live to tape, on, you know, reunion shows. But after I did a show, the Gossip Game that I was on, in front of the camera, that's when I transitioned to doing
To producing,
the
yeah.
shows that you named, right?
Okay.
The ensemble
Yeah.
cast, unscripted.
Yeah. Well, really successful shows.
Yes,
So,
very.
you know, kudos to that. But I do want to ask you, like, so on the show, I know you have Bernice and her daughter.
Oh, on The Impact.
Yes,
Yeah.
on the
Impact New
Impact.
York.
Yes, Bernice Burgos and her daughter Ashley.
Ashley,
Burgos.
yep.
Yes, Ashley Burgos. So let's talk a little bit about that. We don't have that much time left, but let's talk a little bit about like their dynamic, like mother and daughter.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Okay.
And you know, they're Bronx girls.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, of course, I love to see.
Yeah.
And that was the first time, you know, obviously you guys are familiar with Bernice. You know they've been
Yeah.
trying to get her on TV for a very long
Right.
time.
Yes.
But, you know, that was the first time she did a show.
Yeah.
And the dynamic of doing it really, I mean, you can figure out that part of that was for her and her daughter to get the
Yeah.
exposure.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
that I think is important
Yeah,
to know for
definitely.
her.
Right.
Right? Because people say, well, oh, Bernice, she never did a show before. Right. Well, I don't want to speak for her,
Right.
but she did it to help her daughter as well.
Right,
So, you know,
exactly.
I think it was great to see them and their dynamic. A lot of people
I loved it.
related
Yeah.
to that.
Yes.
A lot of people related to that because they're both in similar fields, let's just say. They don't
Yeah.
do the exact same thing,
Right.
but they're in that world of influencing.
Yeah, and I like that you showed that, and they showed that as well, because I know being in the industry as a mom is not the easiest thing.
Not at all.
Navigating your career,
Yep.
navigating being a parent, you know. So talk to us a little bit about like your journey.
Mine.
Yeah.
How much time you got? It's been difficult, I would say. But I think it's difficult for a lot of women.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very.
Because,
Absolutely.
and I tell women all the time, right? You have to be comfortable with putting things on hold
Yeah.
when you have kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
But I also say it because, you know, Kim Osorio was very sought after. You know, a lot of rappers put your name in
oh,
their
God.
songs.
Did they? Not that many.
You know,
Not
so
that many.
like I'm sure at times it was like, you know, a little bit difficult navigating the dating scene and then becoming a mom and also still, you know, being pursued in that way.
Well,
I
the
know
dating-
sometimes.
There was nothing difficult. When I think about 2024 at this age and how difficult it is,
Oh, yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
oh, back
Yes.
then, we were just having fun.
Right.
That's true.
So it wasn't
That is true.
wasn't hard at
That is
all.
true.
What was, I think, challenging as a woman in 2002, 3 when I was at the Source was just being able to have a life and have a dating life, a personal life, and still be respected for your career and what you did.
Right.
And nowadays, I do see a little bit of an improvement, right? Like we
Yeah.
can separate women from the people they've dated. It has nothing to do with their career.
Right.
But back then, it was still, I would say, very challenging for women to be able to separate from that, right? You hear a lot of women who worked in, whether it was publishing or the actual music industry, you hear a lot of them say they would come to work dressed in baggy clothes or try to downplay their looks because when you were at work, you
Right.
wanted to be respected for your
Yes,
work. You
Right.
did not want to be
Exactly.
looked at like, oh,
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying? She's just a pretty face or she's just coming up
Yeah.
here, you know, looking for something else. And I
Right.
think that women of the 90s and 2000s around that time had it a lot harder. Right
Yeah.
now, it's kind of like
It's
your look is
accepted.
your
Oh,
business,
Right.
right? So when you go
That is
into
true.
the office and it's like
Right.
people now respect you. It's like
It's
reverse.
true. I agree.
Yeah.
They respect you more now.
No,
like,
it's true. It is
don't go to
different,
work
yeah.
looking a hot mess.
Right.
Right.
Because
right,
then
right.
it's going to be like, well, she must not be good at her job. Now it's
Yeah.
all about presentation.
Yes.
That
Right.
comes with the
Yeah.
digital age and technology.
It's so much because also like, you know, so I have a corporate background and one of the reasons why I left corporate was because I felt like I couldn't be myself. So, you know, but that was early on in my career,
Now you
right?
could be
Because
yourself.
now it's definitely different. But I still feel at times because I still do business. I'm a business coach. I have several businesses, but I still feel like if I put out anything that looks too sexy on, Instagram or social media, like people judge it and things like that. So instead of like, looking at me or us for what we're doing and the positive platforms we have, they want to see more of those things, But hey, that's the times that we're in.
I think it depends on the industry too.
Yeah. But before we go, I want to touch on a couple of things.
Okay.
So really quick, and I don't know if you can sum this up really quick, but I really want to know, like, I know you worked with a lot of artists, a lot of rappers and things like that in the past. And I know in one of your interviews you talked about how the source was kind of like gatekeeping a little bit because you were putting the more popular artists out there. But how do you feel about, and I guess it's now and then, about artists who have been on the grind, especially in New York, who haven't gotten the respect and recognition that they deserve? Do you think it has to still do with gatekeeping or blackballing?
That's a loaded question,
Yeah.
right? Because I feel like back in the days of the source, I always looked at it as, yes, we want to highlight artistic hip hop and we want to be able to get behind stuff that we really think, is new and fresh and needs to be covered. But then there's the business side to that, right? So then what sells on the cover, right? Like that's, as an editor-in-chief, you can't just be like, oh, we love this person. Sometimes you can, right? Depending on the artist and how much the editorial staff really believes in them and believes in their rise, right? You can get on something like that, but you're gonna take an L that month, right? You want to sell magazines, and people have to see nowadays. There's no question about that. If you're in a business, right? That is ultimately, like, if you look at all of the streamers and the, podcasters now, when they book interviews, right? They'll book an interview that, where they want to hear a very engaging story. Absolutely. But those interviews aren't getting the views. But they still have a business to maintain.
But we don't have that much time left, Kim. We're bringing you back.
Okay.
Yes, we're bringing you back because I want to talk a little bit more about that. But I also saw Trigger Warning with Titi Torres. That was really dope.
Thank
you and her doing that together.
Thank you.
Yes, that shows
Make sure
women
you
empowerment.
check it out. YouTube.
Yes. So, but we are going to bring you back. But I want to ask you two things. So, like, fire answers.
Okay.
One, who is the hot mess of the week?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I'll ask you
I don't
this
have an
one.
answer for that
I'll
one.
ask
You
you
gotta
this
give me
one.
examples, right?
What is one thing that people assume about you that is true?
That is true?
Yes. And you could toot your own horn. And we'll wrap up with that.
What do people assume about me that is true? Oh my God, this is a really hard question. All right, I don't have an answer.
Okay.
I don't have, you know what,
let you-
here, let me
okay.
give you something.
Okay.
I think people assume that I can be really tough, right? Like, and I can be really hard on them, and I am. Like, it's hard to break through, but I think once you break through, then I'm totally cool.
Okay. That's good. I like that.
Right.
All right, Kim. Well, thank you so much for sitting with us.
Thank
we
you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Yes. And we're going to hold you to it. You're coming back.
Okay.
Thank you guys for watching another great episode of Sip Fearlessly. We will have something for you to sip next time.
Yes, definitely.
And thank you guys for your support, and we'll see you next time.